Hey, welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to tackle the stories of two uh, pretty huge tech companies, Huawei and Nvidia. And, you've given us a lot to work with here. Like we've got their origin stories, some insider accounts, even a bit of legal drama sprinkled in. It'll be really interesting to see how these companies, how they climb to the top. What do you think?
Absolutely. We've got a ton of info to dig into here. And what's really interesting is how different their paths to success were. Like Huawei's story, it's a story of aggressive expansion, just this relentless push for market dominance.
Yeah, it's almost like a military campaign, right? I mean,
Mm.
they started out selling imported switches.
Yeah.
It was like a tiny apartment, and now they're this global telecom powerhouse. So I'm curious, what were some of the key decisions or strategies that helped them get that kind of growth?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is their commitment to research and development early on, even when they were just starting out. With, limited resources, they put a lot of their funds into R&D. By 2006, they had filed something like 14,000 patent applications worldwide. That kind of focus on innovation, it was pretty unheard of at the time, especially for a company coming from a developing nation.
That's incredible. So they were playing the long game from the start, knowing that technology was going to be their key differentiator. But it wasn't just about the tech itself, was it? They had this unique approach to conquering new markets, what some people call the human wave tactic.
Exactly. It wasn't enough to just have good products. They knew they had to build strong relationships and provide exceptional support. And they did that by sending a massive workforce into each new market. Imagine a flood of highly trained engineers and marketing specialists, all working around the clock to win over customers and address any issues. Western companies, they just couldn't match that level of data.
Wow, that's a really interesting point. Like, they were willing to go that extra mile, literally, to establish themselves in each market. But that kind of aggressive expansion must have come with a certain intensity.
Right. I've heard about Huawei's demanding work culture.
Yeah, their work environment. It's known for being really intense and results-oriented. 60-plus hour work weeks. That was normal.
Right.
And the pressure to perform, it was immense. This wolf mentality, it definitely fueled their rapid growth, but it also raised some questions about, the sustainability of it all and the ethical implications of such a demanding culture.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, you have this incredible drive and ambition propelling the company forward, but on the other hand, there's that potential for burnout and the sacrifices people might have to make. Did Huawei ever address those concerns? Well, in 2006, they changed their logo from a sharp, angular design to something more rounded and harmonious. It was seen as kind of a symbolic attempt to soften their image and maybe signal a shift towards a more balanced approach. Whether that actually meant a less demanding work culture, well, that's debatable, but it does show that they were aware of how people saw their intense work environment.
It's fascinating how a simple logo change can be interpreted as, like, a reflection of a company's values changing. Makes you wonder, can a company known for aggressive tactics really transform itself? Especially when you consider the complex political landscape they operate in. Huawei's relationship with the Chinese government, it's been a source of both support and scrutiny over the years.
Absolutely. Early on, Huawei leveraged government connections to gain a foothold in international markets. They secured contracts and funding that helped them expand quickly. But as they grew and aimed for more global presence, those same ties became a source of suspicion, for Western governments. Concerned about potential security risks, Huawei had to walk a fine line, trying to distance themselves from government influence while still operating within the Chinese system.
That's quite a tightrope to walk.
Right.
Seems like ambition and political realities are often intertwined, especially in the tech world. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Nvidia, a company with a completely different trajectory, but equally impressive success. Their story is almost a classic Silicon Valley tale, starting with like a dorm room hustle and ending with their rise as an AI powerhouse. And what's really interesting is at the heart of this journey is Jensen Huang, a truly fascinating figure.
Absolutely. Jensen's story, it's one of remarkable drive and resilience. I mean, think about it. Going from a table tennis prodigy and a janitor to leading a multi-billion-dollar company, that really shows the power of hard work and seizing opportunities, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He seems like someone who is always pushing himself
Yeah.
to learn and grow. Even while he was, scrubbing floors at a table tennis club, he had this desire to improve and achieve more. And that drive, it carried him forward through his studies, his early jobs, and eventually to founding Nvidia. But
It wasn't a straight path, was it? He he faced his share of challenges along the way.
Of course. No journey to success is without its obstacles. But what's remarkable about Jensen is his unwavering commitment to his vision. Even when he faced setbacks, he never lost sight of his long-term goals. He was willing to put in the work, even when the odds were stacked against him. And that's a valuable lesson for anyone, really, in any field. I think you're right. It's about having that tenacity, that belief in yourself and your ideas, even when others might doubt you. So how did he go? From designing microchips at AMD to leading entire divisions at LSI, all while raising a family. That takes a special kind of dedication.
He was definitely driven, but he was also incredibly smart about using his experiences to his advantage. At AMD, he honed his technical skills, and at LSI, he gained valuable management experience and built connections within the growing tech industry. All those experiences, they laid the groundwork for his future success. It's like each step was a stepping stone, preparing him for the next challenge. And it was at LSI that he met two engineers, Curtis Prime and Chris Malachowski, who would become his partners in founding Nvidia.
Now, this is where the story gets really interesting. They were working on this secret project, this idea of bringing high-performance graphics to personal computers. But before we dive into the founding of Nvidia, can we talk a bit about Chris Malachowski? His path is so interesting. He was actually preparing for medical school before switching to engineering. The classic story of following your passion, isn't it? I mean, imagine prepping for the MCATs, picturing yourself in a white coat, then suddenly realizing, wait a second, I actually love engineering. That must have been a tough decision.
Absolutely. It takes courage to step off a well-worn path, especially one with such high expectations. But it's also a good reminder that sometimes the most fulfilling choices come from trusting your gut. Pursuing what truly excites you. In Chris's case, that passion for engineering led him to Sun Microsystems, and that's where he met Curtis Prime, another key player in the Nvidia story.
Curtis was kind of a rock star at Sun, right? He designed this incredible graphics accelerator for their workstations. It was so advanced it could handle a huge chunk of the computational workload, which freed up the CPU to focus on other tasks. That must have been pretty revolutionary at the time.
It was a real paradigm shift. Instead of relying solely on the CPU for graphics, Curtis's design introduced the idea of dedicated graphics chips, a precursor to what we now know as the GPU, the graphics processing unit. His work really laid the foundation for NVIDIA's future innovations.
And this is where Jensen's strategic mind comes in. It saw the potential of this technology for the booming PC market, this idea that high-performance graphics could be accessible to everyone, not just those with expensive workstations.
But he was also very methodical, wasn't he? He wanted to make sure the business model made sense before taking the leap. That's right. Jensen is known for being both incredibly driven and incredibly thorough. He wouldn't just jump into anything without, carefully analyzing the situation. He started researching the PC market, studying the competition, crunching the numbers. He wanted to be sure that this was the right move, especially since he had a comfortable, well-paying job at LSI.
It sounds like a classic crossroads moment.
Yeah.
The security of a stable job.
Yeah.
Versus the allure of pursuing a risky but potentially groundbreaking idea. So how did he finally convince himself to take the plunge?
Well, it took a bit of persuasion from Curtis and Chris. They invited Jensen to dinner, a steak dinner to be precise, to hash out their plan. And during that meal, Jensen bombarded them with questions about the PC market, the competition, the technical challenges. He wanted to understand every detail.
He wasn't sold yet, though, right? I mean, he loved his job at LSI. It must have taken something special to convince him to leave that behind.
That something special turned out to be a demo, Curtis and Chris. They brought along a Sun workstation that they had hacked to run on a Gateway 2000 PC, a real Frankenstein-like setup, but it worked. And the graphics, they were stunning, especially when viewed through an early VR headset that they had borrowed. That demo sealed the deal. Jensen saw the potential firsthand, and he was all in.
That's amazing. Talk about a pivotal moment. So in February 1993, on his 30th birthday, Jensen officially joined Curtis and Chris, and Nvidia was born. But their journey was just beginning, right? They had this vision, some hacked-together hardware, and a whole lot of ambition. Now they needed funding, which I imagine wasn't easy in the early 90s, before the dot-com boom really took off.
You're absolutely right. Investors were skeptical of graphics companies back then. So many had failed. It was a tough sell. But Jensen, ever the optimist, was determined to convince them that NVIDIA was different. He believed in their technology, their team, and their vision for the future of graphics.
So where did they start? Did they go knocking on doors, pitching their idea to anyone who would listen?
Well, their first meeting was with Sutter Hill Ventures, a firm known for backing early-stage tech companies. And it went surprisingly well. The partner they met with, Tench Cox, he was already familiar with Jensen's work, and he was impressed by the team's deep knowledge and passion.
That's a great start. But I'm guessing the real test was their meeting with Don Valentine at Sequoia Capital, one of the most prestigious venture capital firms in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Those guys have a reputation for being tough, but they also have a knack for picking winners.
They knew this was a make-or-break meeting, and for this pitch, they decided to go all out. They brought along a hacked Sun GX graphics card to really drive home their vision. An early VR headset. It was a bold move, considering the technology was still in its infancy back then.
It sounds like they were really trying to show, not just tell, what Nvidia was capable of. Did it work? Was Don Valentine impressed?
He was definitely intrigued. But Don Valentine, he was also a seasoned investor with a keen eye for detail. He pressed them on their manufacturing plans, which, at the time, involved partnering with a European semiconductor firm. And it turned out, this firm was in a bit of trouble, having just narrowly avoided bankruptcy.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. I bet that raised some red flags.
It did. Valentine and his partners, they insisted that Nvidia work with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC instead. TSMC was the best in the world, known for its reliability. And cutting-edge manufacturing processes, it was a crucial piece of advice that would shape Nvidia's future.
So, Sequoia ended up leading the Series A round, investing $2 million in Nvidia. They were officially in business. But like any startup, there were bumps along the way, right? I remember reading about their first chip, the NV1, being a bit of a flop.
Yeah. The NV1, it was a tough lesson learned. They tried to do too much, combining video and audio functionality onto a single chip. It was too complex, too expensive, and, frankly, the market wasn't ready for it.
Sometimes those early stumbles can be the best teachers, right? They force you to reevaluate your assumptions, your strategies, and your target market.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, a new rival emerged, 3DFX. They were founded by former Silicon graphics engineers who knew a thing or two about high-performance graphics. Their Voodoo graphics chip. It was a game changer. It offered the kind of performance gamers craved at a price point Nvidia couldn't match.
That sounds like a real wake-up call for Nvidia. How did they respond to this new competition? Did they panic? Or did they double down on their strengths?
Well, Jensen, being the resilient leader he is, saw this as an opportunity to adapt and improve. He realized they needed to streamline their approach, focus on what the market actually wanted, and most importantly, speed up their chip development cycle. They couldn't afford to fall behind.
A classic story of turning adversity into an advantage. So what did they do? How did they manage to turn things around?
Enter the Huawei 128, a make-or-break chip for Nvidia. They poured everything they had into it, working around the clock, pushing their engineers to the limit, and it paid off. The Huawei 128 was a hit. It offered the performance and features gamers wanted at a price they could afford. It put Nvidia back in the game and set the stage for their future dominance.
That's incredible. They went from a setback with the NV1 to this amazing success story with the Huawei 128. It really shows the power of focus, determination, and a willingness to learn from mistakes.
Absolutely. But even as they were celebrating their success, Jensen was already thinking ahead. He knew that to stay ahead of the competition, they couldn't rest on their laurels. They had to constantly innovate. And that meant attracting and retaining top talent. And that's where Nvidia is unique. And sometimes controversial work culture comes in.
Ah, yes. The legendary Nvidia grind. I've heard stories about the intense work ethic. And
demanding expectation. It's definitely a culture that's not for everyone. New hires, they were told point blank, if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job, this isn't the place for you. Nvidia expected commitment. And in return, they offered high salaries, stock options, and the opportunity to work on the most cutting-edge graphics technology in the world.
So it was a trade-off, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Long hours and high pressure, but also the chance to be at the forefront of innovation, working alongside some of the brightest minds in the industry.
Exactly. And Jensen led by example. He was known for his relentless work ethic, often pulling all-nighters alongside his engineers. He believed in giving direct feedback, even in front of large groups, because he felt that everyone could learn from each other's mistakes.
It sounds like a very transparent and demanding environment where everyone is expected to contribute their best. Did he have any specific systems or strategies for staying connected? To what was happening on the ground level, especially as the company grew?
He did. To stay in touch with the pulse of the company, he implemented a unique system called the Top 5 emails. Each day, every department had to send him an email, summarizing the top 5 things that were going well, And the top 5 things that needed attention.
Wow. That's a really interesting approach. It sounds like a way to keep everyone accountable and focused on both the positives and the areas for improvement.
Exactly. It was a brilliant way to stay informed, to identify potential problems early on, and to ensure that everyone was aligned with the company's goals. It forced everyone to think critically about their work, to communicate effectively, and to take ownership of their successes and challenges.
While Nvidia was excelling in the gaming market, it seems like Jensen had his sights set on something bigger. He saw the potential of the GPU for applications beyond just rendering graphics.
You're right. He envisioned the GPU as a versatile tool for general-purpose computing, capable of handling tasks like scientific simulations, financial modeling, and even artificial intelligence. This vision led him to bring on Bill Daly, a renowned computer scientist, an expert in parallel computing, as NVIDIA's chief scientist.
That's a pretty significant move. It sounds like Jensen was assembling a team of visionaries, people who could help him realize the full potential of the GPU.
Bill Daly was a game changer for NVIDIA. He saw the GPU as a massively parallel processor, a powerhouse for tackling complex computational problems. His arrival, it marked a turning point for the company as they began investing heavily in research and development, exploring new frontiers for the GPU beyond gaming.
It's fascinating how this technology, initially designed for enhancing video game graphics, became the foundation for so many other innovations.
It really speaks to the power of seeing beyond the obvious, recognizing the potential of a technology, even outside its original intended use. But not everyone shared Jensen's enthusiasm for this new direction, you know? I recall Wall Street, they were initially quite skeptical of his vision for AI, especially since it required a significant shift in resources and focus.
Yeah, it must have been a tough sell, convincing investors that this relatively niche technology could have such broad applications. Did anyone actively challenge his strategy?
There was one notable challenge from activist investor Jeff Smith of Starboard Value. He wasn't convinced that AI was the right path for NVIDIA. He argued that they should stick to their core gaming business and focus on returning more cash to shareholders. It was a classic clash between short-term profits and long-term vision.
That must have been a difficult situation for Jensen to navigate. He had this strong belief in the future of AI, but he also had to answer to his investors. What did he do? Did he cave to the pressure, abandon his vision?
Well, anyone who knows Jensen knows he's not one to back down from a challenge, especially when he believes he's right. He was convinced that AI was the future, and he was determined to prove his critics wrong.
That's fantastic. It takes a lot of conviction to stand by your vision, especially when facing opposition from powerful figures. So how did he plan to win over the skeptics? Did he have a secret weapon up his sleeve?
He did, and that secret weapon was called CUDA.
CUD, that name rings a bell, but I can't quite place it. Can you remind us what CUDA is and why it was so significant?
Of course. CUDA, short for Compute Unified Device Architecture. It was a revolutionary parallel computing platform developed by NVIDIA. It was essentially a set of tools and instructions that allowed developers to harness the massive processing power of the GPU for general-purpose computing, not just graphics. It was the foundation upon which NVIDIA's AI empire would be built.
So, while some investors were urging NVIDIA to stick to gaming, Jensen was quietly building the tools and technologies that would power the AI revolution. That's incredible. It sounds like he was playing a long game, betting on a future that few others saw.
He was. And it was a risky bet. But it was a bet that would ultimately pay off in a way that no one could have predicted.
That's such a great point. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from taking calculated risks, from believing in an idea, even when others might doubt it. I'm curious, how did CUDA actually contribute to the development of AI? Was there a particular moment or breakthrough that demonstrated its power?
There was indeed. Remember those internet cat photos we talked about earlier? Well, that seemingly trivial phenomenon played a pivotal role, improving the power of CUDA and deep learning.
Cat photos and AI, that's an interesting combination. What's the connection there?
Well, Bill Daly's team at NVIDIA, they're working with researchers at Google Brain on this deep learning project. They fed millions of images, including all those cat photos, into a neural network powered by CUDA. And, amazingly, the system learned to recognize cats all on its own without any explicit programming.
It was teaching a computer to see and understand the world, just like we do.
Precisely. It was a major breakthrough, a proof of concept that deep learning could actually work, and that the GPU powered by CUDA, was the key to unlocking its potential.
That's mind-blowing. I can see why Jensen was so excited about AI. He wasn't just betting on a technology. He was betting on a fundamental shift in how we interact with and how they understand the world.
Exactly. He saw the potential for AI to transform industries, from healthcare to transportation and entertainment. He directed NVIDIA's resources towards developing the hardware and software needed to support this burgeoning field.
Yeah.
Even though many still doubted its viability, it was like a classic David and Goliath story, with NVIDIA the underdog, betting on a future that few others saw.
And he had convinced not just the outside world, but also his own team, right? Well, I imagine not everyone in NVIDIA was initially on board. But this big shift towards AI, when he was a departure from their core business.
You're right. Even internally, there was some resistance. It was a big change. It required a massive investment in research and development.
Yeah.
But Shenzhen was relentless. He held company-wide meetings, passionately explaining his vision for the future of AI. He talked about how AI would revolutionize industries and solve complex problems that were previously out of reach.
He must have been pretty persuasive, it sounds like he had this way of inspiring people, getting them excited about a future that most couldn't even imagine yet.
He did. His enthusiasm was contagious. He challenged his engineers to push the boundaries of what was possible with the GTU, to develop new algorithms and architectures that would unlock the full potential of AI. And they responded, driven by the challenge and the belief that they were working on something truly groundbreaking.
And the rest, as they say, is history. NVIDIA's GPUs, they became the gold standard for AI research and development, powering everything from self-driving cars to personalized medicine to the generative AI tools that are creating realistic images and text. It's amazing to think how far they've come from those early days of hacking together workstations and pitching their vision to skeptical investors.
It really is. It's a testament to Jensen's leadership, NVIDIA's culture of innovation, and their ability to adapt to a rapidly changing technological landscape. They saw the potential of AI early on, invested heavily in its development, and created the tools that made it accessible to a wider audience.
They're not slowing down, are they? NVIDIA is still pushing the boundaries
of what's possible with AI, developing new chips and platforms that are even more powerful and energy efficient. It's fascinating to see how they're constantly evolving, finding new applications for their technology in fields like healthcare and robotics. It's remarkable. They're using their expertise in parallel computing to accelerate drug discovery, personalized treatment plans, and even develop robots that can learn and adapt to their environment, it seems like every day. It brings a new breakthrough in AI, and NVIDIA is often at the forefront.
So what does this all mean for our listener, one who's been following along? With these two incredible journeys, what are the key takeaways from Huawei's relentless expansion and NVIDIA's embrace of AI?
Well, I think Huawei's story really highlights the power of ambition, strategic planning, and a laser focus on execution. They went from a small startup to a global force in a remarkably short period of time.
And they did it by challenging conventional wisdom, investing heavily in R&D, and building strong relationships with customers all around the world. Their story, it shows that. Sometimes you have to play by your own rules to succeed on a global stage.
Absolutely. And NVIDIA's story, it's a reminder that innovation often comes from unexpected places. Who would have thought that a technology designed for video games would become the foundation for a revolution in artificial intelligence?
It's also a reminder that it's okay to be a little bit different, to challenge the status quo, and to pursue your vision, even when others doubt you. Sometimes the biggest rewards come from taking those leaps of faith.
Well said. Both companies, in their own way, they highlight the importance of having a clear vision, building a culture that supports that vision, and adapting quickly to changing circumstances.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these two tech titans, from their humble beginnings to their current positions as global leaders. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed learning about the strategies, personalities, and innovations that shaped these companies' extraordinary success.
It's been a pleasure sharing these stories with you. We always find it fascinating to delve into the details and uncover the hidden forces that drive innovation and progress.
And remember, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions. The world of technology is constantly evolving, and there's always something new to discover. Until next time.